The Galactic Council chamber hummed with alien voices as Ambassador Krextau of the Vorthak Empire addressed the assembly. His four arms gestured dismissively toward the holographic display showing Earth, a small blue marble floating in the vast expanse of space. These humans, Krextau's voice dripped with disdain, barely possess faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are primitive projectiles. They fight among themselves over resources on a single planet. How can they possibly contribute to our mighty alliance? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Zealoty representative, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into prismatic patterns, chimed in with harmonious tones. Their military forces are scattered, uncoordinated. They still use chemical explosives. Chemical? Can you imagine? The human ambassador, Sarah Chun, stood quietly at her designated platform, her face a mask of diplomatic calm. She had endured months of these meetings, watching as humanity's application to join the Galactic Defense Alliance was repeatedly mocked and dismissed. Furthermore, continued Krextau, his mandibles clicking with amusement, their greatest warriors hide in shadows, relying on stealth rather than honorable combat. What use are soldiers who cannot face their enemies directly? A deep rumble echoed through the chamber as the Gorvani delegate, a massive creature resembling a walking mountain, spoke up. The humans sent us combat footage. I reviewed their special forces operations. Amusing, really. They crawl through mud, hide in vegetation, like prey animals, not predators. Sarah's jaw tightened imperceptibly. The footage they had reviewed was heavily edited, showing only basic training exercises. The real capabilities of Earth's elite forces remained classified, even from their own governments in many cases. Perhaps we should demonstrate our superiority directly, suggested the Zealoty. A simple military exercise. Our basic infantry against their finest warriors. Let them see the futility of their ambitions. The council erupted in laughter, a cacophony of alien sounds that would have sent chills down any human spine. Krextau raised his arms for silence. An excellent suggestion. We shall arrange a demonstration on the neutral world of Kepler 442b. Let the humans send their best. When they fail spectacularly, perhaps they will understand their place in the galaxy. Sarah finally spoke, her voice cutting through the alien chatter like a blade. We accept your challenge. The laughter stopped abruptly. Many had expected the humans to decline, to slink away in shame. Krextau's 6 eyes narrowed. You accept? Even knowing that failure will mean permanent exclusion from the Alliance. We accept, Sarah repeated, allowing herself a small smile. We'll send a small team. Just 3 operators. The laughter returned, louder than before. 3 humans against a full Vorthak assault company? The Gorvani delegate actually fell off his platform, the floor shaking as his massive form convulsed with mirth. 3. Krextau wheezed between bouts of laughter. They send 3. Very well, human. Send your 3 warriors to their doom. We shall make it sporting. Only 100 of our basic infantry against your 3. Sarah nodded and turned to leave, her fingers already dancing across her secure communication device. The message was brief. Operation Sasquatch's go. Send Briggs and the twins. Back on Earth, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Commander Jake Briggs received the message while bench pressing what appeared to be an unreasonable amount of weight. The Navy SEAL set the bar back in its cradle and sat up, his scarred face breaking into a grin. Yeti, Bigfoot, pack your gear, he called out. From the far end of the training facility, 2 massive figures turned toward him. They were brothers, twins actually, though few would guess it at first glance. Both stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies packed with muscle that seemed to defy normal human limitations. The result of a classified genetic enhancement program that had started as an attempt to cure a rare bone disorder. Marcus and David Chun, call signs Yeti and Bigfoot, represented the bleeding edge of human physical potential. Finally, Marcus rumbled, his voice deep enough to vibrate through the floor. I was getting bored throwing tanks around. David cracked his knuckles, the sound like gunshots in the enclosed space. What's the op, Commander? Briggs stood, still dwarfed by the twins despite his own impressive physique. Remember those alien assholes who've been talking shit about humanity? The twins exchanged predatory grins that would have made their ancestors proud. They want a demonstration, Briggs continued. 3 of us against 100 of them. Only 100? Marcus sounded genuinely disappointed. Don't worry, Briggs assured him, pulling up the intel on his tablet. They're Vorthack. 4 arms, natural armor plating, about 7 feet tall on average. Should be fun. David was already moving toward the armory. What's our loadout? Whatever we want, Briggs replied. They think we're bringing pop guns and harsh language. The twins' laughter shook dust from the ceiling. 3 days later, on Kepler 442b, the demonstration arena had been prepared. The planet's red-tinged atmosphere cast everything in a crimson glow, and twin suns hung low on the horizon. Thousands of alien spectators had gathered, representing dozens of species, all eager to witness humanity's humiliation. The Vorthack Assault Company stood in perfect formation, their ceremonial armor polished to a mirror sheen. Each soldier carried a plasma rifle and vibroblade, weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. They looked impressive, Briggs had to admit, as he observed them through his scope from 2 kilometers away. I count 98-foot soldiers, 2 heavy weapons teams, he reported through his sub-vocal mic. Nice of them to bunch up like that. Copy, came David's voice in his ear. Yeti and I are in position. You sure you don't want us to handle this quietly? Negative, Briggs replied, a smile in his voice. They wanted a demonstration. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. In the VIP viewing box, Ambassador Chun sat among the alien dignitaries. Krextal leaned over, his mandibles spread in what passed for a smile. Your warriors have not appeared on the field. Have they reconsidered? They're here, Sarah assured him, checking her chronometer. The demonstration begins in 30 seconds. Krextal's eyes swiveled to scan the empty arena. I see nothing but my soldiers. Exactly, Sarah murmured. The first indication something was wrong came when the Vorthack commander's head exploded in a mist of purple blood. The crack of the rifle shot arrived a full second later, by which time 3 more soldiers had dropped. Chaos erupted in the ranks as the aliens scrambled for cover, their training taking over. They formed defensive squares, weapons facing outward, searching for an enemy they couldn't see. Then, the ground erupted. Marcus burst from beneath the sandy soil like a prehistoric nightmare, having buried himself the night before. His massive fist connected with a Vorthack soldier's chest plate, caving it in completely. The alien flew 15 feet before hitting 2 of his comrades, all 3 going down in a tangle of limbs. The Vorthack wheeled to face this new threat, plasma bolts filling the air. Marcus moved with impossible speed for someone his size, the enhanced muscle fibers and reinforced skeleton allowing him to dodge and weave between the energy blasts. He grabbed one soldier by 2 of his arms and used him as a club to batter 3 others. From the opposite side of the formation, David appeared as if from thin air, his adaptive camouflage suit deactivating as he opened fire with a rotary cannon that should have required a vehicle mount. The weapon roared like an angry god, high explosive rounds turning cover into shrapnel and shrapnel into casualties. The Vorthack tried to respond, tried to maintain formation, but it was like fighting smoke and thunder. Every time they focused on one threat, another would strike from a different angle. Briggs' rifle spoke with metronomic precision, each shot finding gaps in armor, targeting officers and heavy weapons operators. Marcus grabbed a plasma rifle from fallen soldier, examined it briefly, then bent it in half with his bare hands. Flimsy, he grunted, before picking up a Vorthack by the ankles and using him to sweep 3 others off their feet. In the viewing box, the alien dignitaries watched in stunned silence. The primitive humans were dismantling one of the galaxy's most feared military units like children pulling apart toys. Impossible, Krextal whispered. Their strength, their speed. That one just threw a fully armored soldier 40 meters. The Zealothy observed, its crystalline form flickering with agitation. Sarah remained silent, watching as David caught a plasma bolt on a piece of twisted metal he was using as a shield, then hurled it like a discus to decapitate two Vorthak who had tried to flank him. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 4 minutes. When the dust settled, the Vorthak assault company was completely neutralized. Some were unconscious, others were too injured to fight, and many were simply too terrified to move as Marcus and David stood among them like titans of ancient myth. Briggs emerged from his concealed position, rifle slung casually over his shoulder as he strolled onto the field. He activated his comm unit, broadcasting on an open channel that reached every spectator. Ladies, gentlemen, and various non-binary life forms. He began conversationally. What you just witnessed was 3 humans. Not our best, mind you. Just 3 guys who were free this weekend, absolutely demolishing what I'm told is an elite military unit. He paused a step over a groaning Vorthak soldier. Now, I want you to imagine what would happen if we got serious. If we deployed an actual SEAL team, or Army Rangers, or, God forbid, if we let the Marines off their leash. In a viewing box, several ambassadors were already frantically communicating with their governments. But here's the thing, Briggs continued, as Marcus and David flanked him, their massive forms still steaming from exertion. We don't want to conquer. We don't want to intimidate. We just want a seat at the table. Because despite what you might think, we're actually pretty nice folks. We'd rather share a beer than throw a punch. He looked directly at the viewing box, somehow finding Krextal's eyes even at that distance. But if you come for us, if you threaten our world or our people, you'll find out that every human is a warrior when pushed. And some of us, he gestured to the twins, some of us push back a lot harder than others. The arena fell silent except for the moans of the injured Vorthak. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, came the slow sound of clapping. It was joined by another, then another, until thousands of aliens were applauding the demonstration. In her seat, Sarah Chun allowed herself a full smile as Krextal turned to her, his forearms trembling slightly. Perhaps, he said carefully, we should reconsider humanity's application. Perhaps you should, she agreed. The next Galactic Council meeting was very different from those that had come before. When the human delegation entered, conversation stopped. Aliens who had previously ignored or mocked them now watched with a mixture of respect and wariness. Krextal himself introduced the motion to admit humanity to the Galactic Defense Alliance. Their methods may be unorthodox, he said, still nursing injuries to his pride, but their effectiveness cannot be denied. Moreover, I have studied their history since our demonstration. These humans have been perfecting warfare for millennia, turning limitation into advantage, weakness into strength. What convinced you? Asked the Gorvani delegate. Krextal's mandibles clicked nervously. I researched this SEAL designation. It stands for sea, air, and land. These madmen train to fight in every environment imaginable. They swim through freezing water for hours, jump from aircraft at altitudes that would kill most species, and endure physical trials that border on torture. And they do this voluntarily. And the large ones, the Zealothi inquired. Genetic anomalies, we're told, though I suspect there's more to that story. Krextal pulled up a hologram. I found historical references to similar human warriors. They called them berserkers, champions, heroes of legend. Apparently, throughout their history, humans have occasionally produced individuals of extraordinary physical capability. Now they've learned to enhance and direct this trait. The Council voted unanimously to admit humanity to the Alliance. Later, in a secure communication with Earth, Ambassador Chun reported the success to her superiors. Phase 1 complete. They've accepted us as military equals. Excellent work, Ambassador. And the twins performed perfectly. No one suspects they're actually your nephews. A chuckle came through the encrypted line. Marcus and David always were overachievers. What's the status on Phase 2? Krextal has already requested human military advisors for the Vorthak forces. He's particularly interested in our special operations training methods. Good. Send them Petrov and his team. Let's show them what human innovation really looks like. Meanwhile, aboard the stealth ship returning to Earth, Briggs sat with the twins in the cargo bay. Marcus was absently bending pieces of captured Vorthack armor into origami figures, while David cleaned the rotary cannon with loving care. "Good work out there," Briggs said. "Though you could have left some for me, Marcus." "You got plenty," Marcus protested. "I counted at least 15 kills from that rifle of yours." 16, Briggs corrected. "That last one was behind partial cover." David looked up from his weapon. "So what's next, Commander?" "The brass can't really think the aliens will just accept us now." Briggs leaned back against a crate of confiscated plasma weapons. "Oh, they'll accept us. They'll even welcome us. But you're right, this was just the opening move. The real work starts now." "What kind of work?" Marcus asked. "The kind where we prove humans aren't just good at breaking things. We need to show them we can build, too. Protect. Lead." Briggs stood and stretched. "The galaxy's a dangerous place. There are threats out there that make the Vorthack look like Boy Scouts. And whether they know it or not, they need us. Because we're the best warriors?" David suggested. "No, Briggs Maid. Because we're the only species crazy enough to look at impossible odds and ask, is that all you've got?" The twins laughed, the sound filling the cargo bay. "Besides," Briggs added, "wait until they meet the rest of the team. If they think you two are impressive, imagine their reaction to Rodriguez and her cybernetic enhancements. Or Thompson with his neural interface, allowing him to control drones with his thoughts. Or Phillips," Marcus added with a shudder. "That woman scares me. And I can bench press a truck." "Phillips is psychological operations," Briggs reminded them. "She's supposed to be scary. The point is, humanity's got a deep bench. And we're about to show the galaxy what teamwork really looks like." As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to prepare for the next phase, none of them could have predicted how prophetic those words would prove to be. Within 6 months, human military advisors were embedded with forces throughout the Alliance. They brought with them not just tactics and training, but a philosophy of warfare that emphasized adaptation, innovation, and, above all, the protection of those who couldn't protect themselves. The Vorthack learned guerrilla tactics, discovering that their forearms made them exceptionally good at setting complex ambushes. The Zealothi, with their crystalline bodies, proved naturals at electronic warfare, once human techs showed them how to modulate their natural frequencies. The Gorvani, massive and seemingly slow, became masters of siege warfare under human tutelage, learning to use their size as both weapon and shield. But more than military knowledge, humans brought something else: their indomitable spirit. The willingness to stand when falling seemed certain. The ability to find humor in the darkest moments. The strange human tendency to become more dangerous when protecting others than when protecting themselves. This spirit would be tested sooner than anyone expected. The first reports came from the Outer Rim worlds. Colonies going silent. Ships disappearing without trace. When reconnaissance drones finally captured images of the threat, even the veteran members of the Alliance felt fear. The Devourers had arrived. They were a hive species, consuming entire worlds to fuel their endless expansion. Biomechanical monstrosities that adapted to every weapon used against them, learning and evolving with terrifying speed. Previous galaxies had fallen before them, entire civilizations reduced to nothing but resources for the hive. In the emergency council session, panic reigned. Species that had waged war for millennia spoke of evacuation, of fleeing to another galaxy. The numbers were overwhelming, billions of Devourer units, each one a killing machine, backed by bioships the size of moons. It was Krextal who asked the question everyone was thinking. What do the humans suggest? Admiral Chun, Sarah's promotion had been swift after the Alliance membership, stood before the assembly. Behind her, a holographic display showed the approaching hive fleet. "We fight," she said simply. "Against those numbers?" The Zealothi's form flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. "It's suicide." "Maybe," Chun agreed. "But running isn't an option. They'll follow. They always follow. The only way to stop them is to make the cost too high." "And how do you propose we do that?" Chun smiled, the expression sharp as a blade. "By doing what humans do best. We get creative." She gestured, and The display changed, showing tactical overlays and battle plans that made several species equivalent of jaws drop. "We'll need volunteers," she continued. "This won't be conventional warfare. We're going to use every dirty trick, every unconventional tactic, every insane strategy humanity has developed over thousands of years of trying to kill each other." "What will you need?" Krextal asked, his respect for humanity having evolved into something approaching awe. "Everything," Shin replied. "And I'll need Briggs and his teams on the front line." In his quarters aboard the UES Persistence, Commander Briggs studied the intelligence reports. The twins sat across from him, no longer joking. The magnitude of the threat was clear. "A stand-up fight is suicide," David observed. "Even with our enhancements, those numbers." "We don't fight fair," Briggs corrected. "We fight smart. And we fight together." He activated his comm unit. "All Sasquatch units, report to Briefing Room Alpha. Time to earn our paychecks." As his teams assembled, humans and aliens who had trained together, bled together, become family in all but blood, Briggs felt the familiar calm that came before the storm. The Devourers thought they were facing another galaxy of prey. They were about to learn why humans had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. They were about to learn why, in the darkest moments, when hope seemed lost and defeat certain, humans didn't break. They got even. The first engagement came at Proxima Station, a refueling depot on the edge of Alliance space. The Devourers sent a probing force, only a few million units by their standards. They expected token resistance before consumption. They found hell instead. Human combat engineers had spent weeks preparing the station, turning every corridor into a kill zone, every room into a trap. The Devourers poured in, their adaptive biology allowing them to survive in the vacuum of ruptured sections. But adaptation took time, and humans had learned to vary their attacks faster than the enemy could evolve. Fire, ice, electricity, kinetic impacts, sonic weapons, chemical agents that can fuse their hive mind communication. Every few seconds brought a new form of death. And in the middle of it all, strike teams led by enhanced operators like the twins carved bloody paths through the swarm. Marcus, now equipped with powered armor that amplified his already prodigious strength, wielded a combat hammer that had been originally designed as a siege weapon. Each swing pulped multiple Devourers, the shock waves from the impacts liquefying others nearby. David had embraced his role as heavy weapon specialist, carrying a directed energy weapon that carved through the biomechanical horrors like a torch through paper. His targeting computer, synced with his enhanced reflexes, allowed him to place shots with surgical precision even in the chaos of melee combat. And Briggs, coordinating from a command post while simultaneously picking off high-value targets, orchestrated the violence like a conductor leading a symphony of destruction. The battle for Proxima Station lasted 18 hours. When it ended, over 3 million Devourers had been eliminated. Alliance losses, 437, with 60% of those being humans who had held critical positions past the point of sanity. But more important than the numbers was the message. The Devourers, for the first time in their recorded history, had encountered prey that bit back. The hive mind recalculated, sending larger forces to subsequent targets. They found humanity and their allies ready. Every battle was different, every tactic unique. When the Devourers adapted to urban warfare, the Defenders switched to space combat. When they evolved resistance to energy weapons, they faced chemical warfare. When they developed filters for chemical agents, they met warriors with blades and hammers and the will to use them. And through it all, the human spirit spread like a virus through the Alliance forces. Vorthak soldiers painted kill counts on their armor. Zealothi sung human battle hymns translated into their crystalline languages. Gorvani warriors adopted human profanity with enthusiasm that would have made a drill sergeant proud. The war raged for 5 years. 5 years of desperate battles, of worlds saved and worlds lost. 5 years of humans doing the impossible and making it look routine. The turning point came when human scientists, working with Zealothi energy specialists and Vorthak bioengineers developed a weapon that targeted the devourer hive mind itself. Not their bodies, but the quantum entanglement that allowed them to function as one organism across vast distances. It's insane, the lead scientist had said. The power requirements alone should make it impossible. Impossible is what we do best, Admiral Chin had replied. Build it. The weapon, christened Babel by its creators, needed to be deployed at the heart of the Devourer fleet. A suicide mission by any reasonable standard. Briggs volunteered immediately. So did every single human special operator. So did thousands of aliens who had served alongside them. In the end, a joint force was assembled. The best of every species, led by humanity's finest. Their ship, the UES Defiance, was a marvel of combined technologies. Vorthak armor, Zealothi stealth systems, Gorvani reactors, and human bloody-mindedness holding it all together. The approach to the Hive fleet was a running battle that would be studied in military academies for millennia. Every kilometer closer meant fighting through exponentially greater resistance. The Defiance's hull became a patchwork of repairs and battle damage. Its crew, those who survived, pushed past exhaustion into a state of transcendent determination. Marcus and David, leading boarding defense teams, held corridors against waves of devourers that seemed endless. Their enhanced bodies, pushed beyond all rational limits, kept fighting through injuries that would have killed normal humans instantly. When a breach threatened the engine room, Marcus held it alone for 43 minutes, his hammer rising and falling in a rhythm that became almost meditative. When relief finally arrived, they found him standing atop a mountain of devourer corpses, still swinging at enemies only he could see. Just getting warmed up, he gasped before collapsing. David, meanwhile, had jury-rigged multiple weapon systems into a devastating array that turned an entire ship's section into a no-go zone for the devourers. His technical genius, combined with his warrior spirit, created killing fields that even the adaptive aliens couldn't overcome quickly enough. And on the bridge, Briggs coordinated the impossible, his tactical genius finding paths through the enemy fleet that shouldn't have existed, exploiting weaknesses in their hive mind that only became apparent for microseconds at a time. Finally, after 7 days of continuous combat, they reached the deployment point. The Babel weapon needed 2 minutes to charge and fire. 2 minutes that might as well have been 2 centuries given the forces arrayed against them. All hands, Admiral Chin's voice echoed through the ship. This is it. 2 minutes. Hold for 2 minutes and we save the galaxy. What followed was 2 minutes that defined heroism across species. Humans and aliens fought side by side, no longer different species, but brothers and sisters in arms. Every second was bought with blood, every meter of deck held through sheer will. Marcus, back on his feet through stimulants and stubbornness, held the primary access to the weapon chamber. His hammer finally shattered. He resorted to using pieces of it as brass knuckles. Then when those broke his bare hands, the devourers piled against him like a tide against a mountain. David, his ammunition exhausted, had turned his weapon into a club. Then, when that broke, used his enhanced strength to physically throw devourers into their own ranks, disrupting their coordination. Briggs, leaving the bridge as it was overrun, fought his way to the weapon chamber, arriving just as the countdown reached 10 seconds. Marcus, David, fall back to the chamber. The twins, bloodied but unbroken, fought a retreating action that would have been impossible for any normal human. They reached the reinforced chamber doors just as the weapon achieved full charge. Initiating firing sequence, the automated system announced. Through the chamber's viewports, they could see the Devourer bioships converging, sensing the threat too late. The hive mind's coordination, its greatest strength, was about to become its fatal weakness. You know, David said, leaning heavily against a bulkhead, I always thought we'd die in a bar fight. Who says we're dying? Marcus grinned through a mask of blood. I've had worse hangovers than this. Briggs checked his rifle one last time, knowing they had seconds before the Devourers breached the chamber. Gentlemen, it's been an honor. Save the speeches, Commander, Marcus laughed. We've got company coming, and I want to hit my century mark before this is over." "Already passed it," David corrected. "You were at 97 before the bridge fell." "You were counting?" "Someone has to keep score." The weapon fired. A pulse of energy, visible only to those with the right sensors, erupted from the Defiance. It spread at the speed of thought, racing through the quantum connections that bound the Devourer hive mind together. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Billions of Devourers, suddenly severed from their collective consciousness, collapsed. Bioships, no longer able to coordinate their organic systems, began to shut down. The greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was reduced to drifting hulks in the span of a heartbeat. In the weapon chamber, the three humans watched through the viewport as the enemy fleet went dark. The sudden silence after days of combat was almost overwhelming. "Do we just—" David started. "Yeah," Briggs confirmed. "We did. So what now?" Marcus asked. Before anyone could answer, Alliance ships began dropping out of FTL around them. The cavalry had arrived, expecting to find debris and death. Instead, they found the Defiance, battered but intact, surrounded by the largest graveyard of enemy ships in galactic history. The rescue shuttles that docked found scenes of incredible carnage and incredible heroism. Humans and aliens who had fought together now sat together, sharing water, tending wounds, and telling stories that grew with each retelling. Marcus and David, despite injuries that should have incapacitated them, insisted on helping with the wounded. Their massive forms, moving gently among the injured, became one of the iconic images of the war. Briggs, finally, allowing exhaustion to show, coordinated with Alliance Command to ensure every survivor was accounted for. His report was characteristically brief. Mission accomplished. Babel deployed successfully. Enemy neutralized. Requesting immediate medical support and lots of beer. The aftermath of the war saw fundamental changes in the Galactic Alliance. No longer was it merely a mutual defense pact. It had become a true unity, forged in the crucible of survival. Humanity's position within this new order was unquestioned, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the elder siblings who had shown the way. Human military advisors became permanent fixtures in every major force. Human philosophy, particularly the concepts of leave no one behind and improvise, adapt, overcome, became standard doctrine. The twins, Marcus and David Chun, became living legends. Their actions during the war had been captured by combat recorders and broadcast across the galaxy. Young beings of every species try to emulate their combination of raw power and tactical intelligence. They handled fame with characteristic humor. When offered positions as generals in the new combined forces, Marcus had replied, "Thanks, but I break enough things as a sergeant. Give me stars, and I might accidentally break a planet." David, slightly more diplomatic, had simply said, "We're operators, not politicians. Put us where things need breaking, not where hands need shaking." Briggs, promoted despite his protests to admiral, found himself in the unusual position of designing training programs for multi-species special operations units. His first act was to establish exchange programs, ensuring that the bonds forged in combat would continue in peace. "War brought us together," he said at the opening of the first combined training facility. "Now we learn from each other, grow stronger together. Because there's always another threat out there, and when it comes, we'll be ready." The facility, built on Earth, became a symbol of the new galactic order. Here, young beings from across the Alliance came to learn not just human tactics, but human spirit. The obstacle courses designed by Briggs and his team were legendary for their difficulty, but more famous for the emphasis on teamwork over individual achievement. Marcus and David served as instructors. Their classes always oversubscribed despite their reputation for being the toughest teachers in the facility. They pushed their students to their limits and beyond, but always with purpose. "Pain is temporary," Marcus would tell exhausted trainees. "Failure is forever. Your buddy next to you is counting on you. The civilians you'll protect are counting on you. So are you going to quit, or are you going to find out what you're really made of?" David's lessons focused more on the technical aspects of combat, but always with an emphasis on adaptation. The enemy will always surprise you, he taught. Your gear will fail. Your plan will go to hell. What matters is what you do next. Think, adapt, overcome. Years passed. The Devourer technology, reverse-engineered by combined science teams, led to advances in medicine, engineering, and communication. Worlds were rebuilt. New colonies were established. The galaxy entered a golden age of cooperation and growth. But the military never forgot the lessons of the war. Regular drills, constant innovation, and the maintenance of elite units ready to deploy at a moment's notice became standard. The phrase, "Remember Proxima Station," became a rallying cry, a reminder that victory came from preparation and sacrifice. Briggs, now in his 50s but still capable of outrunning recruits half his age, stood in his office looking at a wall covered in photos and commendations. Pictures of humans and aliens fighting together, bleeding together, winning together. A knock at the door interrupted his reminiscence. "Enter." Marcus and David walked in, still imposing despite the gray creeping into their hair. "Admiral," David said formally, before breaking into a grin. "Got a minute? For you two?" "Always." Briggs gestured to chairs, which creaked ominously under the twins' weight. "What's on your minds?" "The new recruits," Marcus began. "This latest batch, they're good. Really good. But they're soft." "Soft how?" "They've grown up in peacetime," David explained. "They know the stories, they've seen the recordings, but they don't really understand what it means when everything goes wrong." Briggs nodded slowly. "You're proposing something." The twins exchanged glances. "Operation Hell Week," Marcus said. "A training evolution that puts them through a simulation of the Proxima Station battle. Full immersion, no safety protocols beyond life-threatening injury prevention. We've already designed the parameters," David added, producing a data pad. "Multi-species teams, overwhelming odds, cascading equipment failures. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong." Briggs reviewed the proposal, his expression thoughtful. "This is brutal. The psychological stress alone will prepare them for the real thing," Marcus finished. "Better they break in training than in combat. And those who don't break will be ready for anything the universe throws at them," David said quietly. Briggs stood, looking out at the training grounds where beings from a dozen worlds work together. "Do it, but I want psych support on standby, and you two personally overseeing every evolution. If we're going to push them this hard, we owe them that much." The twins stood, saluting. "Yes, sir." As they turned to leave, Briggs called after them. "And gentlemen, remember, we're not trying to create soldiers. We're trying to create guardians. There's a difference." "We know," Marcus said, his usual joviality replaced by seriousness. "That's why it has to be this hard." Operation Hell Week became legendary throughout the Alliance military. The final exercise, a recreation of the Babel deployment mission, had a 60% failure rate. But those who passed emerged transformed, understanding in their bones what it meant to stand against the darkness. The graduation ceremony for the first class to complete Hell Week was attended by dignitaries from across the Alliance. Admiral Chun, now Supreme Commander of Combined Forces, gave the keynote address. "You've proven something important," she told the graduates. "Not that you're the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest. You've proven that when everything goes wrong, when hope seems lost, when the smart move is to run, you stand. You fight. You protect those who cannot protect themselves." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled beings. "That's what it means to be part of this alliance. That's what humanity brought to the stars. Not our weapons or our tactics, but our absolutely unreasonable refusal to give up. And now that spirit lives in all of you." In the audience, Briggs stood with the twins, watching as their students received their designations. Multi-species teams that would deploy across the galaxy, ready for whatever came next. "Think we're getting too old for this?" David asked quietly. "Speak for yourself." Marcus snorted. "I've got at least another decade of scaring recruits in me." "Another decade?" Briggs chuckled. "I was planning on another two. Someone's got to keep you two in line." They stood in comfortable silence, three warriors who had helped save a galaxy, now dedicated to ensuring the next generation would be ready to do the same. Because that's what humans did. They endured. They adapted. They protected. And when the universe knocked them down, they got back up, cracked their knuckles, and asked, "Is that all you got?" The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans might be newcomers to the stars, might lack the advanced technology of older species, might seem primitive in their methods. But when the darkness came calling, when hope grew thin and defeat seemed certain, there was no one else you'd rather have beside you than a human. Especially if that human happened to be a seal with twin giants at his side, ready to show the universe that sometimes the old ways of warfare, guts, determination, and an absolute refusal to quit were exactly what was needed. The alliance was stronger now, united not by treaty but by bonds forged in battle. And at the heart of it all, humans continued to do what they did best, protecting the innocent, standing against the darkness, and proving that courage came not from the absence of fear, but from action in spite of it. The next time someone in a Galactic Council meeting suggested humans were too primitive, too violent, or too unpredictable to trust, they were quickly reminded of Proxima Station, of the Babel mission, of 3 humans who had taken on 100 elite soldiers just to make a point. And that point was simple. Humans were here to stay. They were part of the galactic community now, defenders of the peace, teachers of war, and friends to all who stood with them. Underestimate them at your peril, because when pushed, humans didn't just push back. They pushed harder, and sometimes they brought friends. Very large, very strong friends who could bench press a tank and considered 100-to-1 odds sporting. The galaxy was a safer place with humans in it, even if, or perhaps especially because, they were all completely insane by everyone else's standards.